My oldest was starting to blame my husband for all the jobs that I had to do, and I was having a bit of a sore back, and he was like, "Oh, it's Dad's fault."
Really? All right. Welcome, everybody, to Parent with Purpose. We are here today, and we are talking to somebody who's actually been through a death of a spouse, and so she has had to deal with raising teenage boys through a very serious illness in her home, and then the final outcome was the death, and all the struggles that she's kind of had with that. And to start off with today, we're going to talk about the whole process of him getting sick and how she's had to deal with raising kids and dealing with all that. So I'm going to actually leave it over to you, and thank you for coming, Pollyanna.
No problem.
So your husband was sick with
Prostate cancer.
prostate cancer, and you found out what year that he was sick?
I believe it started maybe the October or November of 2007. The diagnosis was in February 2008.
Okay, so you go to the doctor, you hear the diagnosis. What happens? What's going on in your head and your heart, and what happens to the family dynamic? What goes on?
Well, total denial from him. And with prostate cancer, there's two readings with the cancer. One is aggression, and one is basically how far along it is. So it said that it was very aggressive, and that. But Stephen, of course, didn't want to do the surgery because it would leave him impotent, not a man. So
I can see that being a real problem.
It was for him.
I mean, it's like women with breast cancer, right? The number one issue most of us have is, I'm not going to feel like a woman anymore.
Oh, I would take it off. I don't.
Yes,
I know. I have learned the hard way. Once somebody gives you that diagnosis, that this is your cancer,
yes,
get in there as fast as you can,
right.
Because otherwise you could be dealing with a death instead of a loss.
Right.
Right? So.
Right. Good point.
Yeah. So he put it off. And then when we went to get a second opinion, and the second opinion came back the same. One of the urologists were able to get him in March 17th, I think it was the first date that we were given for him to have surgery. And we had this trip planned, an Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. And it was scheduled for May. And his first question was, will I recover in time to make this trip? And they said, yeah, maybe. And that was enough to turn him off. So he went with the second person that was scheduling him for the day, 2 days after we got back from the trip. And I don't think, hindsight, we should have definitely done the March. And then, because in the 3 months, the cancer broke through the prostate wall and went into his lymph nodes, which then distributed it throughout his whole body. And if he had done it March, that may not have happened.
Right.
So
hindsight, but then again, you don't know for sure either, right? But
no.
And you can only make judgments by what you know at the time.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
So what happened to you guys in your family unit? Like, how did this, not the serious things that we're going to talk about later, but at the beginning, what were the boys' reaction? You have two boys, okay? And at the time, their
youngest boy was in grade 8, and my oldest was grade 10, I guess.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So they were a bit older. So.
Yeah.
What was their first initial reaction, and how did you, as you and your husband as parents, deal with that?
The first segment, I'll call it, the boys were really good. It was like, okay, your father has prostate cancer, he's going to have the surgery, they're going to remove it, and we're all going to live happily ever after. And in all honesty, that's what we believed. Right. We actually believed that because both urologists told us that prostate cancer is an old man's disease. So, and it's a very slow cancer. It doesn't spread rapidly. However, because of Stephen's age, he was only 45 when he got it. His testosterone, of course, he's still a young man, so
Right.
so testosterone is what feeds prostate cancer. So
It went fast.
went very fast. It was very aggressive,
Okay.
and they did not anticipate that. We didn't anticipate that.
Right.
So when they told us after the surgery, they were like, "Yeah, we don't think we got it all." We were very stunned, and we basically decided not to let the boys
When
know,
did the boys figure it out?
not until we told them,
Okay. and
which
so what
was
made
years
you-
later.
Years
So
later.
I had retired, and we decided that I would take care of the kids and the household and all the duties that came with that, and Stephen would work,
Right.
so that he could concentrate on just that, just so he didn't have too much to focus on. So that was kind of when we decided to tell them. My oldest was starting to blame my husband for all the jobs that I had to do, and I was having a bit of a sore back, and he was like, "Oh, it's Dad's fault," and yada yada.
Kids don't miss much, do they?
No, he said if there wasn't that list that Dad keeps adding to, because I would knock things off and he'd put stuff back on.
Well, of course.
Yeah,
Because now you're trying to literally run the inside of the house and the outside of the house and keep the cars up to date and all the things that generally a
Yes.
couple shares. Now you're trying to do it all.
so Derek got very upset about it and thought that I was being mistreated.
Right.
So
Well, he came to protect his mom.
yes, he did. And so I said to my husband, I said, "You know what, I think we need to sit them down and let them know that this is why.
Right.
It's not because you're a jerk, it's because,
That's the way
we
it has to be.
agreed on this.
Yeah.
And you're not, you know, taking advantage of me at all."
And
So-
that's actually a good thing you did that. Right?
Yes.
Because what did that do for your son and your husband's relationship now? Now he didn't think he's a jerk. Now he...
Oh, he was very upset with himself for thinking bad of his father. So, it kind of took a few days for him to come to terms with the fact that he just misread things.
Oh.
So
But of no fault of his own.
No, not at all. And in the meantime, the attack happened. My other son was having his own crisis that we didn't even
No.
notice. We didn't even see it. So Stephen was done with living, especially after the attack. He wanted out of the subdivision. So we found a new place to live, and we moved, which was a blessing for all of us.
Including the boys?
Very much so.
Okay.
Very much so.
So, but now you're moving. So now you're moving with a sick husband. So you had an awful lot of work with that. Did the boys pitch in? Like, how did the boys respond to suddenly realizing, okay, so mom's shouldering all of the huge responsibilities of the house and home and so on and so forth? Did they pitch in? Did that become an issue? Did they then kind of rebel against it?
They pitched in to the degree of not causing more issues.
That's a good help.
They took
Seriously.
they took care of their own rooms.
Nice.
They took care of their own bathroom. They actually involved their father more in their high school decisions. They actually asked for his advice on courses to take and
Well, your husband was a very smart man.
yes, he was. Yes, he was very. And my youngest boy, he did some counseling. We did some together counseling. And then
Would you do that again?
if I retrospect, I would do family counseling. I would get us all in there
Because
because
it gives you all a chance to talk and heal.
and put things out there.
Right.
Like, why are you doing this? Why are you
Right.
doing that? And it gives them more understanding. I think we gave them less credit than they deserved. I think they could have handled a lot more than we
What you
let
thought.
them handle.
What you thought they could.
Yeah.
So if you had to do this all over again, and if we're talking to an audience and they're dealing with a spouse who's very sick, your number one advice to them would
If
be
you're just finding out, get rid of it as soon as you can. See whatever, if the doctors can get you in tomorrow, do it. Don't hesitate. Don't Don't think what if.
Don't put it off.
Don't put it off. And if you have children involved, as a unit, as a family, get counseling on how to deal with the changes that you're going to be going through.
So be transparent.
Yeah, include them more.
Yeah.
We didn't include our kids enough.
Because you thought you were protecting them.
Yeah. And then, of course, so when the doctor said, we didn't get it all, and it's going to come back, and he says, will I be talking to you like this in 5 years? He goes, yeah, I think so. He goes, will I be talking to you like this in 10 years? He goes, I don't think so.
So they gave you a span of between 5 and 10 years.
And it was 6.
And it was 6?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So having that information in hand, how did that help you as a family kind of get ready and prepared?
Well, my oldest son, when he first, this was all first going down, he instead of getting counseling, he started, getting counseling from his friends and drinking and smoking pot and doing drugs, and we didn't notice it at first. And when we did, it was like, okay, he ended up going to Australia for a month, and he came home totally clean as a whistle. And him and his father, he wanted to go to college. All of a sudden, he wanted to go to college. He wanted to get smart, and he wanted to become a policeman and all this stuff. And we're like, wow, where did this come from?
This is the older one or the younger one?
The older one. My younger boy was just like his father. He absolutely, he knew
what he wanted
to do and when he wanted to do it.
He was driven.
I'm very thankful that my oldest boy was able to get cleaned up, I guess I call it.
Yeah.
He was able to reconnect with his father. They went on, I don't know how many trips. Just the three. They were able to rebuild that bridge.
That's nice.
Yes, Stephen was very happy.
I bet. And you know what? These are things your boys are not going to forget.
No. Although, when Stephen finally did get sick again, my oldest was in his last year of college, and my youngest was in his first year. So, it took a toll on them as far as grades and stuff. All of his professors, except for one, gave him his classroom mark as his final mark. And he didn't have to write exams because of the situation. But one professor was like, no, if he doesn't show up to the exams, he gets a 0. So that took him off the honors.
So your boys' school marks kind of suffered a little bit from just dealing with the life of dealing with all of this. But then the relationship with their dad got good, and they got to build some amazing memories.
Oh, yes.
So get us closer to the 6-year period and what happens there.
All right. So like I said, my oldest boy was in his second year of college. My youngest was in his first year university. And my youngest had come home for his birthday, because we always took them out for their birthday. They got to pick wherever they wanted to go. And he was home for the weekend, and my husband started getting nauseous, and was, he's one of these noisy people that in the bathroom were like, oh, okay, drama queen, right? So we kind of made fun of him. And then the next week he just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Finally, I was like, okay, I need to take you to the hospital. I can't figure out why you're being so sick all the time. So we ended up taking him to the hospital. They did an x-ray of his lungs, and it showed spots. So they were like, yeah, it's back. And they were doing various tests. And I didn't even tell the boys. I didn't want them throwing their school and stuff. It was Easter, so I said, you guys are coming home for Easter, right? Derek, my oldest boy's like, oh, I don't think so. It's a 5-hour drive, 10 hours coming home just for a couple days. It's not really worth it, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll pay for your flight.
So you take your boys to the hospital.
Yes.
And you go up to?
We went up to the cancer ward. And as soon as we walked in, they were like, oh, it's back. So I said to my husband at one point, I said to him, you know, we need to let the boys know what you've decided. Stephen wanted to stay at home. He didn't want to be in the hospital. We were able to talk to them, and they already knew. They said, we already figured that out, Mom. But I said,
So
you need to hear it from your father as well. You need to understand that.
You guys worked on this together.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Stephen had a brain tumor, so he had to have radiation on his pituitary gland, which ended up kind of taking away, like he was like a 10-year-old boy or 8-year-old boy again. So it made it a bit easier for me because he wasn't my husband anymore. He was a patient. And his personality like totally changed, and it made it a little easier for me to cope with it. Yes. Not that
It's good that you actually could do that though, because lots of people might have not meant to, but may have actually almost resented him or been scared, or like, there was so many other options you could have picked rather than just going, okay, so now this isn't my husband Steve, this is my patient Steve, and it really gave you a coping skill.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Sometimes we'd be on our way home from chemo, and like I said, he was like a little boy sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So he would say something silly, and the two of us would be in tears laughing so hard. And he often said, you know, I'm so happy that we can still laugh together. Stephen was very much like that, where it was a fact, yes, I'm dying, but like you said, I'm not dead yet, so don't, you know, let's have some fun if we can.
Let's live life as much as we can.
Yeah. So he's like, well, for my last Christmas, I want to go to Barbados. So I said, okay, let's make it happen. So the boys and I pulled it all together, and we made it happen.
And was that a good thing? Like, was that a good decision to do that? So you guys had something to look back and celebrate?
And we still do it.
Nice.
Each Christmas, we
say,
somewhere. Forget the tree, forget all that crap.
And you go
in memory of Stephen.
Oh,
we
now,
still go somewhere.
Wrapping all of this up in kind of a package for people who are going through this right now. I don't know that I saw many pictures where Stephen wasn't smiling. You did a phenomenal job from the outside looking in that I could see of keeping things as normal as you possibly could. Was that your goal that you set out to do, or was it really just because you guys were so transparent and it was just kind of what it was? Because I know you are very real people. So
that was just love.
That was just love. I think we're going to end on that. We hope you have an awesome day. I'm sorry. I know that was tough.